Good evening. I'm Jamil Andolini. I'm the editor-in-chief of Politico Europe. Thank you all for being here. Commissioners, members of parliament, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be back. It's obviously my first time doing this. I joined in October. But this event has a prestigious history in this very building. But unfortunately, for the last 2 years, it's been virtual only. So it's really wonderful to be back in person with all of you, where fingers crossed it's not a super spreader event, but even if it is, it's probably just Omicron, so we'll all be fine. So this one is extra different because we actually announced our P28, our Politico 28, Power 28 list back in December, and we plan to have this event back in December, as we have in previous years. And unfortunately, thanks to COVID restrictions, we had to delay it. 3 months is a long time in politics, as you all well know. Our list is maybe slightly out of date. If you look at who we named as the most powerful person in Europe, it's Mario Draghi. He couldn't be here tonight. He's very busy solving the crisis in Ukraine. Or not. So what we did is we actually did a survey with our audience, all of you and our very powerful audience around Europe. We did a reader survey to ask who you think, our audience thought, should have been on the list, maybe who shouldn't have been on the list, and then we got everyone to vote. And now we're going to show you some of the finalists up on the screen. Some of the people who our readers thought should not be on the list, I'll start with that. Lukashenko, Carrie Johnson, and Rishi Sunak. I personally happen to think that that is based on popularity rather than the eligibility to be on a list. And just to clarify what our list really means, it's not about who we think is the coolest, most handsome, most beautiful, most popular person. It's about who we think is the most powerful or is the most relevant to power in Europe today. So what we're doing is not an endorsement in any way. Now, for the people who should have been on the list, here are some of the people, the top-rated people from our audience of who should have been there. So, obviously, the French president, the German chancellor, and sorry, I've come from China. Everyone's a chairman and a president and a emperor, and the Tsar, Putin, and obviously the leader of Ukraine. So. Very suspenseful. We'll tell you now who won, who is the reader's choice for who should have been on the list for this year, and they will reveal right now. Drum roll. Great reveal. A little bit obvious, I suppose, it's on some of the screens, but not on the big one. There it is. So this is... Just to be clear, this is the choice of our readers. I'm going to quote one of our readers who described Zelensky as a beacon of hope for peace, democracy, decency, a symbol of the fight for freedom. I'd just like to say a special welcome tonight to the ambassador of Ukraine who's sitting down here on my table. Please stand up. We're really, really grateful that you could join us at such a difficult time for your people and for your country. And, as my colleague mentioned earlier, our thoughts are with the people of Ukraine, and we've made a small gesture of our own for tonight and dedicated this event to the people of Ukraine. We do have an exciting program for you this evening. We have a stellar speaker lineup from both Brussels in person and from Washington, beaming in across the world. So we have the European Commission Vice President, Maroš Šefčovič. I'm sorry, my pronunciation in Chinese is better than it is in European. The EU Commissioner for Home Affairs, Ylva Johansson, who We met very recently at the Munich Security Conference, and I was especially admiring of your views, Commissioner, on cryptocurrencies, and we're going to continue that discussion. And last but not least, dialing in from the US is the US Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, Karen Donfried, will be joining us a little bit later. So before all that, I'm really happy to give the floor to our presenting partner, Ylva Johansson, Channel Manager Retail for Belgium from Diageo. Ylva. Thanks.
Good evening, Vice President Šefčovič, Commissioner Johansson, Dr. Donfried, distinguished guests. I would like to start with thanking Jamil for his welcome to this evening's gala dinner, and of course to Politico for organizing this event. It's such a pleasure to be able to see you all in person, especially in these turbulent times. Diageo is delighted to sponsor this evening and hope that you have been able to enjoy some of our brands available at the bars tonight. It's a gathering such as these that we can openly exchange and inspire each other across our respective fields to drive change for the better. Last December, Politico unveiled its class of 2022, championing the most influential and disruptive figures in Europe. 3 months on, we are facing complex and serious new challenges beyond COVID-19. That's why, as Europe faces new unprecedented challenges, it is important to be here tonight to engage in fruitful debate about today's dreamers, disruptors, and doers who are driving change and solving problems in European politics, policy, and business. Alongside everyone in this room, Diageo stands united for peace, democracy, and for freedom. With war erupting in the heart of Europe, this evening's event is dedicated to the Ukrainian people, with a donation being made to the Belgian Red Cross to support relief efforts. At Diageo, we are also supporting, where possible, including a 2 million donation to be shared equally between the International Red Cross and CARE International. Looking forward, Diageo is committing to shaping a fairer, more equal, and sustainable future. In the Future of Progress, our Society 2030 campaign sets bold and ambitious, yet achievable targets that we as a global business with a European footprint are committed to reaching. For example, our sustainability pledges include reducing our water use and accelerating towards a low-carbon world. We have also pledged to becoming sustainable by design, with clear targets to achieving zero waste across our supply chain from grain to glass, in line with several EU policy initiatives such as the Circular Economy Action Plan and Farm to Fork strategy. The green transition requires the cooperation of the private sector, and Diageo is strongly committed to being a responsible actor and leader in this regard. The 3 categories within Politico's class of 22 each represent a different type of power. However, the most powerful opportunity lies within our ability to collaborate and to move forward together. So I've been standing here long enough with my glass, so let's raise it to the spirit of collaboration, which begins with all of us in the same room being together tonight. So on behalf of Diageo, we hope you have a wonderful evening. Cheers, guys.
Everyone, welcome as well on my behalf. I'm afraid you are not able to start your dinners just yet, as we'll first dive into our first interview. And I would like to welcome Mr. Vice President. Thank you so much for joining us today. Obviously, Ukraine has been on our minds since the start of the invasion, but it feels like this is a particular week in Brussels with EU leaders joining, President Joe Biden coming, and yet at this kind of another critical moment, EU leaders are not able to agree on next steps in imposing further sanctions against Russia. Do you feel that the EU unity that we've been applauding so far, that we're struggling now?
No, I really don't think so. And indeed, I think that Politico did a great job to really assess the position, the influence of the politicians. And we just saw the pictures of these leaders revealed. And I have to say that I feel honored and privileged that I know President Zelensky personally. I was at his inauguration, and he met several meetings, and I saw how quickly he mastered the art not only of communication, but the leadership. And I think leadership is something what we clearly need in this difficult day, and we have to demonstrate the same leadership, the same courage as Ukrainian people are demonstrating and showing every day. And you mentioned that I just came on Sunday from the United States, and I have to say that I never seen such a good atmosphere, so many positive remarks aimed at the European Union, because we've been very fast, we've been resolute, our sanctions are robust, and I think we see that in a couple of weeks we are actually crippling the Russian economy. And it was done in this remarkable partnership with the United States, with UK, with Japan, with our partners, and I'm sure that Europe is ready to do whatever it takes to help Ukrainian people to stop this atrocious war. But I think the next huge challenge will be we have to rebuild democratic, prosperous Ukraine, and I think that's absolutely consensus among the European leaders.
And if you say whatever it takes, I mean, obviously the elephant in the room at this point is sanctioning imports on oil or gas. As a former energy commissioner, you know this very well. Is this necessary according to you, and can the EU do it? How much will it hurt us?
I think that we, of course, are exploring all options, and tomorrow, actually, we are also approving our proposals for the European leaders and creating I would say, more structured possibilities for them to discuss them. And of course, one of the issues we are tackling are high energy prices, because I think by the fact that we are so strict with our sanctions on Russia, we already see, I mean, that the energy prices are very highly elevated. And I have to say that in the United States, again, they look at admiration with what kind of I would say resilience we are coping with these high energy prices, and we see the same if it comes to the critical raw materials. And therefore, I think we have to learn how to overcome dependencies and not to have the same dependencies as we have with the fossil fuels, with the critical raw materials. And therefore, I'm sure that leaders would assess how the sanctions are delivering, and also what should be the next steps. But so far I have to say that there is remarkable unity among all EU leaders, and I'm sure that it would be further cemented on Thursday.
And unity also on what we should do on these high energy prices, because also there you obviously ahead of this key meeting this week with leaders, you see different stances from different countries on how to tackle that. What would be your approach?
I think that there, of course, what we need to do, I mean, it's first to tackle immediate crisis, because indeed we have enormous price hikes, which are also due to the geopolitical tension, also due to the fact that the energy was once again used as a point of pressure on European Union, and therefore I think we have to do several things. The first one, of course, is take care of the immediate situation, and there we are going to propose different measures, kind of options from which the leaders would be able to choose. Of course, the final document would be approved by the Commission tomorrow, but what I can say is that we are looking at how to learn lessons from the COVID-19 crisis. So we're looking what kind of state aid measures we can use to simply push the prices down to help vulnerable citizens, vulnerable companies. I think we have to find the ways how we would diversify our energy sources so we would have more inflows of the gas to the European market. And I think we should also put on the table the possibility that we should use this enormous size of European economy to be very strong in purchasing gas for all those EU countries and the companies who would like to cooperate together, because our purchasing power is enormous, and there will be, of course, several other elements which we are still discussing, finalizing, and which will be presented tomorrow and discussed by leaders on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned raw materials. This crisis has led again to more calls for strategic autonomy after we already had the pandemic. When it comes to raw materials, how should we make sure that we have enough access in this current geopolitical context?
Again, I think that we can use the patterns which work so well, for example, for building of critical energy infrastructure. I was traveling across the European countries, building interconnectors, looking for financing for LNG terminals. And I think lessons learned is that we have to focus our minds in Europe and to create the list of what I would describe strategic European projects. Because we have a lot of raw materials in Europe, we have a lot of raw materials in our neighborhood, and we definitely have ambitions to be #1 recycling power in the world. Mm-hmm. And with all that, I think we will be able to cover more than 60% of the raw materials we would need. But what would come with such a label of strategic European project? I think that in exchange for the label, we should, of course, expect that highest environmental, social standards would be respected, that there will be proper dialogue and involvement of the local communities, and that from the European side we would then help with de-risking the investments, with creating, I would say, framework for the investors not to be worried to go into these projects, and simply help them all the way until we would secure that source of primary and secondary raw materials in Europe. I would say there is a strong interest in that from the leaders. We saw it in the Versailles conclusions. This morning we had a discussion on the draft conclusions of the European Council for Thursday. So there is huge political interest. You should use it to the maximum. And if it would be required, we are even considering how can we implement it in the form of certain new legislative framework, which would kind of cement all these possibilities and kind of replicate the good lessons which we learned from using Connecting Europe facility and build-up of energy infrastructure.
Yeah, okay, so that's a concrete proposal. Before I let you all enjoy your meals, I just also wanted to touch on the cooperation that has come out of the sanctions, especially with the US. As you just come back from Washington, we have the US ambassador here. Do you think that this will lead to more fruitful cooperation with the US, and should it be in a sort of more structured way as we have now with the sanctions, more ad hoc?
I have to say that that this atrocious invasion and aggression of Russia on Ukraine clearly led to the high re-energizing of transatlantic ties. And I think, first and foremost, the cooperation of sanctions was remarkable. And it of course, it just underscores the importance of our cooperation in a trade and technology council. And I also came to Washington to offer new avenues of the possible transatlantic cooperation. One on foresight, because I think that we have to equip our leaders with the best possible analysis, with a perspective which hopefully would be joint, so they can really have this transatlantic vision and make the well-informed decision. Then I think the cooperation in energy, clearly United States of America would be first addressee to whom we will come with our proposals. Let's have more of your LNG in European ports, and what we need to do together to simply get rid of this dependency on Russian fossil imports. And the last very important area is critical raw materials, because in this we are together, and we just have to realize that on all future-oriented technology, be it quantum computing, photovoltaic panels, batteries, or aerospace, satellite industry, we simply need the critical raw materials which are scarce in the United States, in Europe, and therefore we have to develop the partnership, how we can develop this ecosystem, these businesses in Europe, in neighborhood, in the United States of America, and have something like what we discussed at the State Department, clearinghouse of the most useful projects into which we can go together with our diplomatic muscle, with our financial power, with our public investment institutions like EIB, EBRD, to help the investors to overcome this first hurdle, come and invest.
And does that improved relations, does that also go for the UK? Because in normal times, obviously, we would be questioning you about Brexit. At the same time, the EU ambassador to the UK still said that there's a lack of trust. Boris Johnson is not invited to UCO this week. How are those relations?
I think that the cooperation on Ukraine, on military assistance, on sanctions was remarkable. And you would probably recall that since I took over for the EU-UK file cooperation, in my first speech, I clearly outlined that the EU interest is in having very strong partnership with the UK. We are eternal neighbors. We are allies. We should be really partners who cooperate like we are cooperating on Ukraine, also on all other files. And I just hope that a positive experience on working together on this very important global issue would also create positive momentum in what are still open questions between EU, UK, and I think it's really high time to get Brexit done, to really make sure that the obligations which are clearly stemming from the withdrawal agreement, from the trade and cooperation agreement, from the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland are clearly fulfilled, and I think this is expectation in Europe, and I can say that it's a very clear expectation also from United States, because peace for all of us is of paramount importance. Europe is a peace project, and we saw that Ukrainian people are ready to fight and die for being the member of the European Union. And I think this is the approach we should take. This is the lens through which we have to look at all these issues.
And because you mentioned that, did what Johnson said about comparing Brexit to what the people in Ukraine are going through, did that have anything to do with him not being invited to the European Council?
I think that the European Council clearly wanted to look at these very important matters in the format of the EU leaders with the American president as well, because there is such an important role being played in this transatlantic approach towards Ukraine. And I think that we have seen that the remarks generated quite an internal debate in UK. But what is, I think, important for me is not to be kind of deterred or distracted from that path, which I think we should follow with the UK to sort out these difficult issues, because first and foremost, in the particular case on the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland, we should have on our mind the interest of the people living in Northern Ireland. And what I hear from them is we want predictability, we want stability, we want peace. Yep. And as I said, European Union is a peace project, and that should be our top priority.
Okay. I would like to thank you again for your time. I would like to invite you for enjoying your dinner, and we'll be back with another interview by my colleague Joss with Commissioner Johansson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.